Hi there. Can you see that quagmire? The bog, morass, swamp, marsh. It is the foundation of many people to their certain wealth. That is their foundation. That is our foundation till now. So let's try to do something with that. What I learned along my journey from lack back to abundance is that this cannot be rushed. It has to be taken slowly, by its own way, by allowing. Getting time for your consciousness to regain control of your mind. Consciousness, regain control of your mind. You need to remove all the negative bits to ensure there is little to no chance of their return. It is through meditation. It took me 3 weeks to get to a level which is quite good. However, I expect it to take at least a couple of years to cement this stuff into place through meditation, through quieting the mind. Then I expect to remind myself every few months for the rest of my life. This is like servicing your car. Your mind needs servicing too. The reason you are where you are is that you have been running your car, your mind, with the wrong types of fuel and not servicing it. Is it any wonder it is not doing so well? That's no wonder, of course. But that is why. The foundation skill to creating your life by design. If you cannot control what you think, what you feel, how you feel yourself, then you cannot create the future you desire. However, you don't need control to easily create the future which you don't desire, which you do not desire. This you can do by accident. During this process, I intended for you to turn this natural accident turn off and turn on your natural success mindset. Sounds good? This point doesn't just need to be read about. It needs to be absorbed and accepted fully so that it can then be taken advantage of and really exploited for the true power that it gives you. This power literally creates the life you are after. And no, I am in no way exaggerating. This point is the difference, the key you have almost certainly be searching for. And it is also your baseline. When you feel out of control, you come back to this, and you are back in control. The better you observe this, the faster you will be at peace and be able to create the life you desire. What is baseline? The baseline, when you feel out of control, you come back to this and you are back in control. The faster you will be at peace peace in your mind. Peace in your mind. On the path to riches, without control over this point, you are simply doomed to repeating the mistakes you made in the past, or merely mediocre success at best. If you don't master this point, then there is no point in trying to obtain great wealth, as you will struggle forever until you recognize that this point is the very foundation that must be put into place to bring about everything else. What will happen? As you will struggle forever until you recognize this point, the very foundation. With this in place, you are certain, and I mean certain, to bring about your desires. However, you don't need to know how to master this point to get great wealth, as you can master it with ignorance too, as plenty have. They do with ignorance. If you are really going to get the power out of the stuff I'm going to share with you, then you are going to need to look inside and observe and clean up everything properly. There are many fears, offenses, just negative blocks which you don't know about, which you must discover and delete from your subconscious. I know looking inside can be a very scary place to visit, but without putting the bits right in there, you'll never get what you want. I could give you a bulletproof formula for riches, and your mind would still find a way to screw it up, just as mine did. So if you truly want the life of your dreams, then your answer to getting it lies inside your conscious, inside your consciousness. 15 seconds of positive thought. What I didn't say previously was 3-4 seconds was actually an achievement in itself, as my mind was continually talking and jumping between the past and the future, monsters in the closet, terrors waiting for me outside. In truth, my mind was never silent. So 3-4 seconds, however, was actually 3-4 seconds more than I had had in a long time. I also didn't cover the full power of this technique. This is not something that you should or maybe might want to have and go at. This goes on your must-do list. Must-do list. Without accepting this as must-do, and without actually doing this for yourself, you'll simply be holding back the magic power that you have within you. Simply holding back magic power within you. It is your choice. Taking back control from the nutter who is currently running your show. So today, you need to think of something from your past, something that makes you feel great when you think about it. It is irrelevant what to think. The thought that was the one I did it for me, and I think about it daily, was in 2021 I had got my private pilot license. Private pilot's license. And they actually let me fly airplanes. Having been an otter on the road for years, I couldn't actually believe they were even letting me learn to fly, let alone fly off on my own. Or worse, look after passengers. But they did, and I passed and learned some wonderful control over my desire to drive fast, and over that now too. Anyway, my son David was 2 at that time, and I took him fly for the first time. Mom and Allison came too, but it was the sheer joy of seeing him in the back seat with the headphones on that really gave me pleasure, continuous to do so. It was that thought which I tried to focus on for just 15 seconds. But I couldn't even hold a thought that made me feel so good for just 5 seconds. Can you imagine how bad that felt? I was totally out of control of my own mind. Some nutter I didn't know was running the show and wouldn't even let me have 15 seconds to think about something that made me feel good. Finally, this made me angry enough to demand that I was allowed to do this, or I wouldn't leave the spot. So, if you haven't got the life you desire, then there is almost certainly some nutter inside your head making damned stupid decisions based on rubbish information. He may not be as crazy as my nutter, but he will be in there. So now, choose a powerful thought. One that no matter what happened, no one could ever take away from you. Find yours now, and hold on it for 15 seconds. Don't move on until you have done this. Remember, I'm telling you. Now, to think about one of the most pleasurable things you have ever had in your life. This is not work. This is joy. Go and enjoy it. Can you hold on to it for 15 seconds? Can you hold on to it? Well, keep going until you can. Pull over, stop listening, do it until you can. There is nothing more valuable. Nothing more valuable. Stop and do it. Okay. Hold that thought. Nothing more important than you regaining or even gaining for the very first time control of your mind. Hold that thought for 15 seconds. Keep going until you do, and then keep repeating it every hour. And so, until you can turn it on at any time. You cannot do this too much. The more you do it, the easier it will be for you to do all of this stuff. The first thing, just try it for 15 seconds. And other things, during the day, keep doing that 50 seconds until you do, and then keep repeating every hour or so until you can turn it on at any time. At any time. Okay, that's the task for one day. The next thing after that, then as a minimum, try it now for just 10-15 minutes. That's advanced. Try it for 10-15 minutes and enjoy observing the madness that dwells within your mind. With observation comes great power. And you really must observe the madness before you learn to easily silence it. You need to make it visible now so that you can see through its camouflage as a protection, just in case you ever allow it back in again. Actually, you may in fact enjoy, as I did, a full day of just practicing this without reading on, as it may well have been one of the most crucial days of my life. That moment when I got angry forced my nutter to hand back control to me for 15 seconds was one of the key turning points in my life. As someone who you have allowed to share his wisdom with you, I am saying to you, if I could force you to stop now and spend a day practicing this, then I would, as I know the benefit. But that is your choice. I know the benefit. But that is your choice. And that how important it is. And that how easy it was. And how difficult it became. At the beginning it was easy. Then it was difficult. And more it got hard. Then I couldn't do it at all. And with years, I come back to it again. Actually, you may in fact enjoy a day, so do it. I know the benefit. Overpowering your little saboteur. Welcome back. The first question is, how did you do? Did you manage to regain control of your own mind? Were you able to regain control from the nutter who currently has it? Did you for the first time get to meet this little saboteur? Was it a rewarding experience? Or was it something that you just read and didn't really pay attention to? I expect for the first time that after a while you were able to hold on to that positive thought for 15 seconds. However, here's a way to make it far easier to go well past 15 seconds with no effort. Go back to your wonderful thought and think about it more. Relive it. Just relive it. Remember how good that feeling was then and start to feel it. Not just think it. Go back. Experience it again. With me, I felt the surface of the aircraft. I felt it. The feel of the door opening, how it felt when I sat in the seat, the smell of the morning grass covered with dew. I remember walking to the aircraft, doing pre-flight checks while my family waited for me. Say that they could get into the plane. I remember Allison putting David's earphones on and remember the smile on his face and how excited he was. It was a moment, a picture in my life I will always love, and if I choose to, I could relive that moment again and again and never get bored of it. The 5 minutes before, 5 minutes after that moment, I have now lived again countless times. That's a gift you are getting. Permission to go back and experience again one of the most joyous moments of your life again and again. This is one technique whereby you control your thoughts. However, there are more to come. With this skill, you literally have built the foundation to certain wealth. Not that foundation as many people do, but solid foundation to the certain wealth. As for how you did, well, if this is your first read through, then I'm guessing that at best, after a few attempts at holding a positive thought, for a few seconds you dropped the subject and went on with your life. After all, why wouldn't you? That is what I did. The first half, a dozen times or more, I learned this technique. But the question I should have asked was, why did I? And I am guessing, because I can only guess, why did you not consider that this was important enough to give more thought to? After all, I had written earlier. We keep going, well, keep going until you can. Pull over, stop listening, and do it until you can. There is nothing more valuable than I am ever going to tell than you regaining or gaining for the very first time control of your mind. So did you think I was lying with that comment? Or did you do as we all do and just skim over certain text? Well, I'm guessing that some people took the time and did it. They were able to hold one positive thought in their mind for 15 seconds. And I also like to think that a few have now got this as on-demand service. So at any point, they can regain control of their mind. But the majority of you probably wouldn't have either done it or have it on demand. Why is that? Wouldn't have it at all, or either done it, have on demand. If you didn't do it, and you don't yet have the life you desire, then the question to ask yourself is, why did I do that? Don't worry, I was expecting it. After all, I did do it myself. But the point is, I did in the end. And that is where and when the change happened. Where and when the change happened. I did it in the end, and that is the where, when the change happened. That is where the power is. Without that bit, then you are building on sand, and everything you build will always be built on sand. What I built was a quagmire on the bog, morass, swamp, marsh, and that was my foundation of my certain wealth. Please get the importance of this. This is the foundation to the life you desire. It may seem insignificant, unimportant. You may be reading this, trying to find the missing key to the life you desire. Well, I'm handing you them. The life you desire can only be unlocked with a still mind. With the still mind. Still, quiet mind. That is it. That is the key. Meditation. Meditate. Be quiet. And for the answer, why you didn't do it, I'll quote from a great book that many of us have read and just skimmed over without noticing the true power of it. To do things in a way you want to do them, you will have to acquire the ability to think the way you want to think. Acquire ability to think the way you want to think. This is the first step toward getting rich. To think what you want to think is to think truth, regardless of appearance. To think truth regardless of appearances. Think what you want to think is to think truth, regardless of appearances. Every person has the natural and inherent power to think what he wants to think, but it requires far more effort to do so, far more effort than it does to think the thoughts which are suggested by appearances. Far more effort requires. Think what you want to think than the thoughts which are suggested by appearances. To think according to appearances is easy. What is easy? Easy to think according to appearances. To think truth regardless of appearances is laborious, requires the expenditure of more power than any other work, and person has to perform. Think truth regardless of appearances is laborious, requires expenditure, more power than any other work person has to perform. There is no labor from which most people shrink as they do from that of sustained consecutive thought. It is the hardest work in the world. There is no labor from which most people shrink, as they do from that of sustained consecutive thought. This is especially true when truth is contrary to appearances. Every appearance in the visible world tends to produce corresponding form in the mind. Every appearances in the world produce corresponding form in the mind, which observes it. This can only be prevented by holding the thought of the truth. How prevent? By holding the thought of the truth. To look upon the appearance of disease will produce the form of disease in your own mind. Real disease will produce form of disease in your mind, ultimately in your body. Instead, you must hold the thought of the truth, which is that there is no disease. Disease is only appearance, and the reality is health. To look upon appearance of poverty will produce corresponding forms in your own mind. Instead, you must hold to the truth that there is no poverty, there is only abundance. To look upon appearance of poverty will produce corresponding forms of poverty. You must hold to the truth. There is no poverty, there is only abundance. Yay! Ho ho! Only abundance. Only abundance. There is no poverty. No poverty. It requires power to think health when surrounded by the appearance of disease. It requires power to think health, or to think riches when in the midst of the appearances of poverty. It requires power to think riches when in the midst of the appearances of poverty. But he who acquires this power becomes a mastermind. He can conquer fate. He can have what he wants. Okay. That was taken, Science of Getting Rich, Wallace D. Wattles, Chapter 4, page 19. Bob Proctor says he has read this book several hundred times and always finds something new. I suggest you read that section again a few times. I bolded up some bits to emphasize them, but all of it is important. I first read that book in early 2007, and I highlighted a couple of bits from that page of text, but I didn't realize the power of it until just the other day. As it happens, it wasn't the text that finally got me to get it. It was another reproduction of the work. But the point is that I read it and ignored it. I read it and ignored it. Why? Because my mind didn't apply it. It didn't realize the absolute power of it. Absolute power. And it didn't want the very hard work of having to think. But the point is that this is it. This is the very foundation to building riches. If you cannot control your own mind, then you cannot give it clear, consistent direction about where you want it to go. Yes, it's obvious, but we let go of the obvious without taking the correct action. So can you, at will, control your mind? Right now, I want you to hold a consecutive thought of something wonderful for just 15 seconds. Do it right now. Don't worry, if you cannot do it yet. I couldn't. But if you want certain wealth, then you have to acquire this skill. So keep practicing. Practice until you can. You can practice some more in or just after your everyday situation. On the bus, in the car, on the train, wherever. Regain control of your mind. You deserve it. Without it, you will not have certainty without it. And with certainty comes absolute power. Absolute power comes with certainty. That was skill number 1 that you have to acquire. If you haven't acquired it yet, or you just want to move on, and in a few moments' time you think that nothing is changing, why did I read that book? Why am I doing on this website? My life is still the same. It will always be the same. You will always appear to be stuck simply because you have not acquired the skill number 1. You have not built a solid foundation. You have something like this. That's what I have had by years. Okay, next stage. No mind. No mind, the next stage. When you practice in silence in your mind, at some point you attain no mind. It is when you literally think of nothing, no thoughts of any kind. The Zen people call this Satori, but that's far too clever for me, so I'll stick with no mind. This doesn't mean you are asleep or in a trance. No, you are just fully present, fully alert, and fully aware. You will probably have experienced glimpses of this throughout your life, and they have passed probably without much notice. However, the technique of silencing the mind's chatter, together with some other techniques which I am about to show you, will create the byproduct of no mind. It is a byproduct, no mind. In the same way as continued practice of the martial arts creates byproduct of Qi. This no mind is not something you have to be superhuman to get. All it is your switching your thinking off. It is you switching your thinking off. Switch thinking off. I have taught both my children to do this, so you can learn it too. Admittedly, they didn't have as much insane chatter going on as we adults, but there was still junk in their minds. When you decide you are going to bring in a mind, don't try, just bring it in and silence your mind. I suggest You find your favorite spot in the house, and that is very quiet. That is very quiet when you first do this, so that there are no external distractions. Place with no external distraction. Once you do it, see how long you can hold it for. I play game with David practicing how fast you can bring it in and how long you can hold it for. It takes him a few seconds to silence his mind before bringing it in, and he can usually hold it about a minute, which is of course fine. In fact, the power of this is so great that once you can control it and bring it in on demand anywhere, you only need to hold it for a few moments to completely regain control and effectively restart your hard drive. The power of this so great that once you can control it and bring it in on demand anywhere, you only need to hold it for a few moments and you completely regain control, effectively restart your hard drive. I practice it, bringing in no mind, in all sorts of conditions, on the train, in the car, in shops, in a bar, while playing music, in gym. I kept practicing, and in the end, there was no place that I could not steal my mind in an instant. Now I can do it. Actually, I can do it. No mind will just happen when you are ready. Don't struggle with it. Don't force it. Just allow it to happen when you feel you would like to. So, 15 seconds of consecutive positive thoughts, and there, no mind. Practice it. Practice until you can do it, until you can hold 15 seconds, and practice no mind on demand. I suggest you keep returning to this chapter, as if you get this and can turn it on whenever you want to, then you cannot not notice the immediate change in your reality. Listen, if you get this, turn it on whenever you want, you cannot notice the immediate change in your reality. This is hidden obstacle will never be invisible again. It's hidden obstacle, but it will never be invisible again for you if you master it. Spend plenty of time building your foundation. You cannot put the roof on a house until you have built the walls, and your walls need to have a solid foundation. It is solid foundation of your certain riches. Repetition essential to do it, to practice it. It is not the things we are yet to discover that will change our lives, things we have learned and ignored. Through repeating great stuff, you will acquire a great power. Don't be afraid. Read a good book and practice important things until you can do it on demand. That's it, actually. That's it. So let's go and let's do practice. Let's practice it. 15 seconds of positive thoughts, then 15 seconds every hour during the day, and then 10 minutes. 10, 15 minutes. And then no mind. That's it. But anxiety may come at any time. So you must be prepared and ready to get rid of it. That's it. Let's go.